Easter baskets with the gospel presented in each of the baskets. They were living out their faith. Now, here's something I think is important for us to understand. I've spoken to my children at school about this. God expects us to live out our faith whether we're in a group of believers or not. Whether we're at church or at home. Among people that are like us and claim Christ as Lord, or people who are unlike us who reject Christ. We're to live out our faith equally in all situations. Paul wanted the church to understand. Even though he was in prison, he was living out his faith. He was calling out upon the Lord Jesus Christ in his walk. He was being committed to Christ. No matter where you're at, whether you're, and I think this is nice, Rebecca maybe took the metaphorical route. The road that our road that we're on. See, there's a road there, and we're walking on it. We're to live out our faith. Rebecca, you're pretty smart. You're not just a keyboard person. You see her medulla oblongata works. The emotional parts. I need to focus here. We live out our faith in a consistent manner. People that struggle, and this is where it gets really real for me and a reminder to me, because I'm not perfect. I am prone to make mistakes. I know, it shocks me too. If we still shock me, mistakes, I admitted it. That's a mistake. If our daily walk is not consistent with our talk, and that talk being proclaiming Jesus as Lord, saying, I'm a Christian, if our daily walk doesn't bear that out, guess what? There's a good chance that you just might not be, wait for it, Christian. Jeff Foxworthy has this nice little thing, years it's been going on. You might be a redneck if. You know, he has all kinds of things. If your house can move from neighborhood to neighborhood, you might be a redneck or whatever. If you, by the way, I must be a redneck because I live in Detroit. Or what's another one? I can't remember. You might be a redneck if
you cut your grass and you find 2 or 3 cars.
That's right. You might be a redneck if you know that. I must be a redneck because at my parents' house, well, we got a few cars.
Looks like a used car lot.
It does, doesn't it?
You must try that first.
Talk to my dad later. You might want to have some help removing something. As a Christian, you might be a believer if the indications are that you live for the Lord. Is your conversation one in which if Jesus was standing next to you, that people might say, he's with Jesus and Jesus is not ashamed of him? Or you might be a Christian if you wake up in the morning and say, I want to give my life to God today and I want to live for him. Does our walk measure up to our talk? See, Jesus did more than just say he loved us. He showed us he loved us. The Via Dolorosa, that road that he took, Golgotha, the hill in which he gave his life for us, showed his love. Now, newsflash, as we've already mentioned, I'm not perfect. None of us are. Good thing, that's why God came, because His perfection has been given to us. But as a believer, look at those verses, and we'll put the verses back up, 12 and 13. The reason we can be obedient and live out our faith is because of God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill His good purpose. God working in us, living in us, causes us to be able to live out our faith. Without Him, we would be in a world of hurt. We'd be in double trouble. It would be bad. There would be no way we can measure up to what God expects for us. So we need to live out our faith. We need to live in a manner in which God is glorified. For His good purpose, we're to do this. Through His strength within us, we can and will fulfill that obedience and that obligation that God has laid before us. Paul encouraged the early church to do this. God encourages us through His Word to do this today. At the river, we are to live out our faith daily. Not just when we have an opportunity, as awesome as it was yesterday. Could you please cue the picture again? Bam, yeah. Not just yesterday when we walked up and down roads and subdivisions, 900 homes. That was great. That was an opportunity for us as a group, and those who participated, I thank you, because there's a lot of homes to do for one person. 2 people. It's a lot of homes for 18 people. But that's not our obligation. We're not obligated to do that only. Every day we're to walk up and down the road of life, living out our faith. And when opportunities arise, we should jump in and share. Being consistent with our walk is what God asks of us, what God expects of us, what God commands us to do. To be obedient to Him, to live out our faith. Second thought I want to share, not only should we live out our faith, we also see in verse 14 that Paul tells us, do all things without complaining and disputing. Did you know as we live out our faith, God expects us to do it in a happy manner? Which brings me to my second thought. Leave out bad attitudes.
Oh, I can't see his face.
It's like this. Because my feet were hurting. And the sun was in my eyes. And the rain clouds were coming down or around. It's like our attitude in service should be a one in which people know that we're glad that we're believers. And I must confess, not at every point yesterday was Brian in a good mood. Or me too. Both of us. Leave out the bad attitude. It reminds me, back in 1987, maybe? 87 or 88, when I was at Auburn Mobile Home Park Chapel as a teenager, there was a youth minister there named Bob Fagan. I've mentioned his name before. And he had a saying that he actually incorporated into our youth group to try to keep our attitudes right. And he actually came out of chapter 2 of this same book, of the same letter. He talked about having the mind of Christ, and we had this little thing, we said, attitude check.
Praise God.
Right? That's who remembers. This is a little before your time, Amber. Not a whole lot before.
Hey, I was 5 in 1987.
I wasn't.
I was here.
In fact, Jackie, you remember Bob, and Sheila, you remember Bob. Well, Shane, I don't know, do you remember Bob? You met Bob, so you remember Bob. But your mom and your daddy remember Bob well, and so there too. Your little brothers too. It was one of those things, if we were struggling with our attitude, Timothy, you remember Bob too. Timothy was there too. He reminded us, check our attitude. Our attitudes need not be bad when we're serving God. Because, quite frankly, it's very easy to undo the good work that God's working through us with a bad attitude. It's sort of like getting your paycheck and then blowing it. You get your paycheck, and what are you supposed to do with your paycheck? In part, pay your bills, get your lights, make sure your lights are on, get your food in your belly, pay for gas and insurance and all that stuff. It's like, there you go, and then all of a sudden you get your paycheck and it's gone and you've done nothing with it. You've lost it. When we have a bad attitude in service, all that good that God is doing through us, we miss out on, we lose out. God expects us to have that attitude. Remember, think like Jesus. I can tell you this, if anybody had reason to have a bad attitude when they were on earth in service, it's Jesus. How many people would have a good attitude when you've come to give the world a great gift, and instead of being thankful for it, they spit in your face, they whip you with a cat of nine tails, they scourge you and rip flesh out of your back, nail your hands and feet to a cross, put a big old sticker bush of thorns this thick on your head. How many of us would have a really good attitude and say, wow, this is good. This is for you. It's worth it. Gotta be honest with you, probably the spitting in my face would be enough to make me say have a bad attitude. Let alone all the other stuff that God wants. In service to the Lord, as a follower of Christ, if we follow Him, we need to leave out the bad attitude. We live faithfully, and we leave out the bad attitude. We need to live out our faith in a way in which we have a good attitude. Now, I'm not telling you that if you ever wake up and you don't have a Pollyanna moment, for those of you who don't know what Pollyanna is, Pollyanna was one of my favorite Disney movie people. She was a young girl who everything, she found the good in it. Someone was negative, she said she was thankful. She played it. Yes, Mommy dearest. She played it that. Well, that's probably not good. She played it the glad game. She was always happy. She found the good in everything. She had a good attitude. Sometimes it's hard to have a good attitude when, for instance, when the Atlanta Falcons got cheated out of the Super Bowl by the 49ers.
That's some good preaching.
It's hard to keep a good attitude. But I will say this now. I'll say this though. I had a much better attitude when the 49ers got cheated out of the Super Bowl victory. Where's Evangel? All I can say is Evangel. Well, see, I'll talk about you, Evangel. Make him watch the video. No, even Evangel had a pretty decent attitude for that. He's like, we do need to keep our attitude in check. And the only way that can possibly happen, by the way, honestly, goes back to verses 12 and 13, verse 13 specifically, to the power and strength of Jesus Christ. God enables us to do that. Now, a third thought I want to share this evening can be found in verse 15. We're to live out our faith. We're to leave out bad attitudes, but we're also to do this. We're to be people that are blameless and pure children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky. We're to live out our faith. We're to leave out bad attitudes, and we're to light up for Jesus. We're to light up for Jesus. Look at the light of the Georgia shirts. The highlight. You trying to make up for yesterday? I heard it. I can tell you this. By and large, the vast majority of people we went to yesterday and gave out the gift, the Easter gift, people were happy to see us. We were lighting up for Jesus, and we're not talking about the things you buy in packs. Which, we're not, that's not lighting up for Jesus here. Scary. Some people actually got that. Some people Jesus is the light of the world, and He expects us to be little lights as well.
Amen.
We're to share our faith with those we come in contact with. We're to let people see the love of Jesus within our hearts and with our lives and in our actions. Now, the first part of that verse talks about our conduct. We can't light up for Jesus. We can't be a light into the world if our lives have been dimmed by sin. Follow that? We can't be lights for Jesus when the darkness of sin, it pervades in our life, this all over us. If we're living a sinful life, if we're not walking in the faith, if we're not living for Jesus, if our attitudes are bad, the crooked and perverse generation in the world we live in will not see Jesus. They'll see us being them. They'll see no difference between God and His love and the world's version of lust. If we're not living for Jesus, we can't be lights to the world. This is not meant to make us feel bad or guilty. This is meant to remind us of our calling to live for God. To live for Jesus. To magnify His name. There are a lot of people that we come in contact with. Not just at Easter and Christmas, although we came in contact with about 3,000 people yesterday, total, through this activity, that need to know Jesus Christ. They need Jesus. They need to see the love of God every day. Whether you're at a truck stop, whether you're at the Waffle House, whether you're at your place of business, whether you're at the library. I know you got the Waffle House thing down there.
Waffle House.
Rock on. Waffles to go. No matter where, or to stay, I don't care. Wherever you want to, just tell people, let people say Jesus. Wherever we're at, they need to see how awesome God is based on our lives. We're not seeing that. They're a huge issue. Gets back to the living after faith. Maybe we don't have that faith that we think we have. We can't sign for Jesus. Maybe He's not within us. One thing I know about a candle. A candle's got a wick and it's wax and it's got the little thing that sticks up, you know. And how does it catch? How does it light? A light. It's got to have a flame right there. Jesus is our flame. He ignites us. We shine because of Him in us. If He's not within us, we're just a candle. Is a candle in the wind? No. Maybe that was bad. No. It's out. Final thought I want to share. Segueing quickly from there. Not only should we live out our faith, not only should we leave out the bad attitudes, not only should we light up for Jesus, but we also see in verses 16 through 18. In verses 16 through 18, holding fast the word of life, so that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain or labored in vain. Yes, and if I am being poured out as a drink offering on the sacrifice and service of your faith, I am glad and rejoice with you all. For the same reason, you also be glad and rejoice with me. We need to last so others may rejoice. You're missing out on it. Tell me you got FaceTime, James. Levaniel lasted the whole day yesterday. He never grew weary. He went from house to house. He even found a couple of Marine connections.
Man answered the door.
James, you're ruining my story. He still found them. Or found their house. Found the father who said he loved Marines. He continued going up and down the road, sharing. He completed the task. Paul, as he encouraged the Philippians, he was saying, guys, I'm being poured out like a drink offering. He said, I know my life is near the end. You complete me. I guess that's like that Tom Cruise movie. You have yet hello. What Paul's saying, maybe he's not saying that, but he's saying that by you living out your faith, I rejoice because I have done what I was supposed to do. I have shared Christ. I've displayed that love. And you in turn are doing the same. We should rejoice in the fact that people live out their faith consistently. We need to be able to live out our faith consistently so others can rejoice in that. Every one of us here has someone who's influenced us or affected us in a positive way. Most likely that helped us come to know Christ. Would that be a fair assessment?